Do you face the argument or walk away? The decision that shapes your relationships. We have all found ourselves in the middle of a heated argument, whether it's with a partner, a close friend, a family member, or a coworker. These moments can feel overwhelming. The big question is, do you face the argument and fight for your perspective, or do you step away and avoid confrontation? But is walking away always a sign of weakness? And does facing the argument always prove strength? The reality is that both approaches can be right or wrong, depending on the situation and how they are handled. In this video, we will explore the psychology behind arguments, when it is better to confront, when it is wiser to withdraw, and how to make these decisions in a way that strengthens your relationships rather than damaging them. Stay with me until the end, because I'll be sharing real-life examples and practical strategies that will completely shift the way you think about conflict resolution. And before we dive in, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with those who might benefit from it. Why do arguments happen in the first place? Understanding the root cause of conflicts is the first step toward handling them wisely. Arguments don't just happen out of nowhere. They are often triggered by deeper issues that may not be immediately obvious. Here are some of the main reasons conflicts arise. Miscommunication. Sometimes what we say is not what the other person hears. A simple misunderstanding can escalate if neither side takes the time to clarify their intentions. Differences in values and priorities. People have different perspectives shaped by their upbringing, experiences, and beliefs. When these differences collide, it can create tension. Unresolved emotions. Past frustrations that have been ignored or suppressed often resurface during an argument, making the conflict seem larger than it actually is. Perceived lack of respect or appreciation. Many arguments stem not from the actual issue being discussed, but from feeling unheard or undervalued. Stress and external pressures. Sometimes arguments arise not because of real issues within the relationship, but because of external stressors like work pressure, financial worries, or personal struggles. Recognizing these root causes can help you approach conflicts more calmly and rationally instead of reacting emotionally. Take a step back and ask yourself what is really causing this tension. The impact of conflict on relationships. Arguments are not necessarily bad. In fact, healthy debates can strengthen relationships by promoting understanding and growth. However, when conflicts are handled poorly, they can create deep emotional wounds. Here's how arguments can affect relationships. Positive effects. Strengthens mutual understanding when handled with respect. Encourages emotional growth and better communication. Can lead to problem solving and improved dynamics. Negative effects. Can create emotional distance and resentment if conflicts remain unresolved. Repeated toxic arguments can damage trust and lead to long-term relationship breakdowns. Can impact self-esteem and emotional well-being, especially if the argument turns into personal attacks. Now that we understand why arguments happen and their potential consequences, let's look at a real-life example of how conflicts can play out. Real story: Emily and David. Emily and David were close friends, but one weekend they had a disagreement about their vacation plans. David wanted to go on a hiking trip, while Emily preferred a beach getaway. The argument quickly escalated. Emily felt that David never valued her opinions, while David thought Emily was being overly dramatic. The truth is, the argument was never really about the vacation. The deeper issue was about how valued each of them felt in the friendship. This is a common scenario where the real conflict is buried beneath the surface. If both had taken a step back to understand what was really bothering them, they could have addressed the core issue instead of arguing over the surface-level disagreement. Is walking away always a sign of weakness? Many people assume that withdrawing from an argument means giving up or being weak, but that's not always the case. In reality, there are two types of withdrawal: one that is healthy and one that is harmful. Positive withdrawal. Walking away can be a strategic decision that helps prevent unnecessary damage. It's useful when the argument is getting too heated and emotions are clouding judgment. The conversation is turning into personal attacks rather than a productive discussion. You or the other person need time to process thoughts before continuing the discussion. You recognize that the conflict is based on temporary emotions rather than a real issue. Negative withdrawal. On the other hand, withdrawing can be a sign of avoidance when You walk away just to escape the conversation without intending to address the issue later. You ignore or suppress your feelings instead of expressing them constructively. The other person is left feeling unheard, which can create more frustration and resentment. The problem remains unresolved, leading to repeated conflicts in the future. Knowing when and how to walk away is key. Walking away should not be about avoiding problems, but about allowing space for a more constructive resolution. When should you choose to walk away? There are situations where stepping back is the best decision, such as when the argument turns into a shouting match with no logical discussion, when emotions are running high and rational thinking is no longer possible, when the discussion is leading nowhere and both sides are simply repeating themselves, when you realize that continuing the argument will only damage the relationship further. How to handle arguments wisely. If you care about the person and want to maintain the relationship, here's how you can handle conflict effectively. 1. Practice active listening. Don't listen just to respond, listen to understand. Try to put yourself in the other person's shoes and see things from their perspective. 2. Control your emotions. It's easy to get caught up in the heat of the moment, but emotional regulation is key. Take a deep breath and pause before reacting impulsively. 3. Take a break when needed. If the argument is becoming too intense, suggest taking a break and continuing the discussion later when both of you are calmer. 4. Find a middle ground. Instead of focusing on winning the argument, shift the goal toward finding a solution that works for both parties. Success story: Sophia and Lucas. Sophia and Lucas were in a long-term relationship, but constant arguments were driving them apart. Instead of walking away completely, Lucas decided to change his approach. He stopped reacting defensively and started expressing his emotions calmly. Over time, Sophia also softened her approach, and they began to find better ways to communicate effectively. Even if the relationship doesn't matter to you, handle conflict with maturity. Even if you don't care about continuing the relationship, walking away respectfully reflects emotional intelligence. Instead of escalating the situation, try saying, "I don't think this discussion is productive right now. Let's talk later when we're both calmer." How to end an argument gracefully. Express your perspective clearly without hostility. If necessary, withdraw in a way that signals respect rather than avoidance. Avoid forcing your opinion. Some disagreements take time to resolve. Before making a decision, ask yourself, what is my goal in this discussion? Will this argument bring us closer or push us further apart? If I walk away now, will I regret it later? Final thoughts. At the end of the day, the decision is not just about confronting or walking away. It's about choosing the best approach that preserves your emotional well-being and relationships. The way you handle conflict says a lot about your level of maturity and self-awareness. Whether you choose to stand your ground or step away, do it wisely, because every decision you make shapes the quality of your relationships. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with your friends. See you in the next video.